Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Next Door NetAdmin. I'm going to just not do a lot of talking today. I've done quite a bit of talking already over the last 3 episodes, just talking about how we can put together a clean Windows installation and get it all set up just the way you like it without all of the additional stuff that Microsoft has crammed into Windows 11 and then wants to download later and cram even more into it. Last week, we talked about setting up an unattend file in Windows System Image Manager. Today, I'm going to show you the effects that those files can have. We're going to go straight on in. I already have my virtual machine booted here. It's currently booted into Windows PE. You'll have seen this interface previously if you watched my channel from the very beginning. I think like the second video, the first real video I put out after the intro, was on system migration with DISM, and we used this interface with Windows PE. Because of that, or rather, because it's difficult in a virtual machine to use an ISO and a USB stick, I'm actually using Windows PE to load the VM, and then I'm going to run Windows Setup and manually point it at our auto unattend file. But again, if you had used Rufus or something of that sort to either unpack the ISO to a USB stick, and then you can put auto unattend right in the root directory there, or if you use an actual burned disk or a disk straight from Microsoft, either one works, you can put auto unattend on a USB stick and have that inserted at the same time. And both of these methods, Windows Setup will use the auto unattend automatically. But since I'm in a virtual machine, I have to kind of fudge it just a little bit. But our auto unattend file is right here. This is the same file that we were setting up last week. If we look at it, we've got the Windows PE pass, Microsoft Windows International Core, WinPE. It's the language setup. We have our partition information here. We're going to automatically wipe out whatever's on this hard drive. Will wipe disk, true. It's going to create the partitions, format them accordingly. It's going to install Windows 11 Pro onto the main partition. We've got our GVLK here that I discussed last week. We've got our name, we've got the organization, we've got all the bits and pieces, and most importantly, when we're done, it's going to boot into audit mode. And so this is going to show us what we are going to be working with in audit mode. So for this, I'm going to call setup.exe, and I am going to tell it specifically that the auto unattend is on the drive that I've mounted as Z here. Hello. And that should, if I've done this right, it should load Windows Setup and start running it with the settings from auto unattend. There we go. So if I shrink that down, you'll see that it's just gone straight into installing Windows. It's not asking me what I want to install. It's not asking me where I want to install it. It's not asking me to agree to any licensing agreements. It's just taking the settings and going. And going pretty quickly because this is a virtual machine and we're using resources that are already electronic. We're not having to do any disk seeking off of a DVD or even off of a USB. Although it's useful to note that installing it off a USB is also pretty swift, depending on how good your USB stick is and what kind of a disk you're installing it to. If it's on an SSD, it goes really quickly. While it finishes installing, once we boot into audit mode, I'm not going to go through the entire process of installing a whole bunch of applications. I'm going to demonstrate this basically just by customizing Edge and then showing you how we can make a golden image of that and then what it looks like when we boot back up fresh. it's important to note, some applications require a little bit of finessing while you're in audit mode so that they unpack properly. Particularly something like Microsoft Office. If you roll that into your image, and I often do for my corporate customers, if depending on how you install it, if it's opened up at any point and you've done customizations within Office, then it's probably set itself with an installation specific ID. And so when you take this golden image and you duplicate it, you don't want it to have the same installation ID because that really screws with some of your licensing stuff. So there's a special process in Microsoft Office where you can rearm it, is the term that they use. And when you rearm it, it generalizes itself a little bit like sysprep does for Windows. And then once it restarts again in your first boot up on the imaged machine, it will redo its custom installation ID. All right, so now that we have done our Windows setup using the settings in Auto Unattend, it's going to start up, and it may do the thing where it gets set up with devices and other drivers first. Would not surprise me. Yeah, getting devices ready and getting ready. Like I said earlier, when you're in audit mode, you're actually running as administrator, but it doesn't unlock the account. So it's a little goofy, but I'll show you all what I mean as soon as it's done booting up. When I am doing this process live, I don't generally do it in a virtual machine. I generally do this specific for each individual model of PC that I'm going to be imaging. I'll do it once to get my Windows installation media ready and clean that up by pulling out any of the apps that I don't want and then setting any additional registry settings. But when I'm actually doing this, I'll install to audit mode once on every model of hardware that I want to use. And that way I can do things like add device drivers, not going to be applicable here because we're in a virtual machine. Add any applications that I want. Again, I'm not going to be doing that here. But then I can also customize it per client. Some clients use specific software for accounting. Some clients use software for, tracking dietary requirements in a kitchen. It's all customer dependent. In this virtual machine, though, as you can see, it does say administrator. That's your first clue as to which account we're logging into. And as it prepares it, there it is. There is a fresh, clean Windows 11 interface. And sysprep, the system preparation tool, when you're in audit mode, this will launch every single time. Every single time. But I'm just going to close it. First things I'm going to do, edit edit the task manager settings. I don't want the widgets. I really don't care about that. Taskbar behaviors. Yeah, I don't like it in the center. Sorry, I'm old school and I want it on the left. I don't mind any of that stuff. Okay, cool. And then it's a matter of getting everything else set up the way I like it. I'm not going to touch any of these icons pinned on the taskbar because Windows 7 just brings those back all the time anyway. You'll also see here that this is not activated. To some extent, that may be by design, but that's okay too. Personalization. And it says here you need to activate Windows before you can personalize your PC. Ignore that. To some extent, that may or may not be true for some of these things, but you can actually add a whole bunch of different things even without activating it. For example, show recommendations. No thanks. Don't need recommendations in the start menu. going forward. I really don't. I did taskbar. This is the kind of stuff that I go through every single time, is just going through and figuring out exactly what I want. Privacy and security. Not going to fiddle with anything in Windows security, at least not right now. Search permissions. This is what I want. Safe search. I'll leave it on moderate. Again, this is for a business environment. Cloud content search. No, I would take that off normally on my own, but again, this is for corporate customers and they may be using work or school account. If I need to adjust it later, I will. More settings. Show search highlights. I hate search highlights. I hate that icon that sits there with all. I don't need that. I don't need more visual clutter. I can get rid of it. Goodbye. Okay. So that's the basic settings that I would use. And if I pop open a command prompt, hello, who am I? I am on the administrator account. You can see it says it right there. But if I open up my computer management, and I'm just going to pop open local users and groups to show you that even though I am logged in as administrator, the administrator account is still disabled. So because we're in audit mode, it's logging me into an account that's actually disabled just so that I can get these settings set up. And if, like I said, you happen to walk away for a while and your machine locks its screen, great, cool, fine. How do I get back into this? Well, I'm currently signed in as administrator, so I should be able to sign in, right? But it's been disabled. There's no way to get back into this short of, okay, go down, restart the machine. It won't lose any of the settings that I've started, and it will reboot back into audit mode. So if you've walked away and your screen has locked, don't panic. Just realize if you were in the middle of something, then you might have to redo a little bit of it, but you can just restart it and it'll come straight back into audit mode as administrator. It'll pop back up. Again, you will see that sysprep loads because it always loads when you're in audit mode. There we go. All right, now I'm going to go through and customize Edge and get all that set up. Yeah, no, start without data. Don't allow. Don't allow. And okay, now we've got all of this stuff. What a joy this is. All right, go back to the home page. It's a whole bunch of crap. Okay, so let's no promoted links, no thanks. Show the feed? No, I really don't want you to show the no background either. Thank you. Do I even want the weather? No, I don't want the weather. Goodbye. Go away. All right, much cleaner. But I can get better yet. If I go to settings, the first thing that I'm going to do is go here because the first thing it's going to do is update Edge. And there's a bunch of crap that Edge loads. For example, there's no Copilot here. That's great. But as soon as you update Edge, it's going to bring Copilot in. So if you go through and customize everything right off the bat, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of crap as soon as Microsoft Edge updates. So if I update it first, then I can go in, pull all of the stuff out or deselect it. And then when I actually finish up with audit mode, it'll already be updated and all of the additional stuff like Copilot will be disabled from the get-go. Cool. So now we see I've got Copilot. Blech. And we can go and start getting rid of it. Oh, Microsoft rewards. No, thank you. I don't need that crap. Microsoft Wallet. All the Microsoft Wallet stuff can go away. Thank you. No, I don't want you to save credit card info. I don't want that. I have a different password manager. I do not want you doing all of that. Don't even do autofill. I'm not interested. Nobody asked you for that. All right. Settings. Privacy, search, and services. Balanced is fine. I don't care about that. I'm not interested in letting websites know if I have payment methods saved. Thank you so much. Defender's fine. Typo protection is fine. Secure DNS, I'm going to disable that. Why do I disable secure DNS? Because I'm doing this in a corporate environment. In a corporate environment, we have our own DNS servers on the network. If I have secure DNS set here, it won't use corporate DNS services the way that I want it to. It'll always go out to some secure provider. Is it secure? Yes. Is it going to work for the business? Maybe not. So I'm always going to disable that. All right. Web services. Do I want to save time and money with shopping? No, I really don't. And I don't want Discover either. Again, this is a business environment. I don't care. I might leave those. No, who am I kidding? I'm probably going to disable them because I'm like that. Sidebar. All right. First thing I want to do, Copilot. No shopping notifications. Don't show Copilot. And I don't even want to show the sidebar button. Goodbye. All right. Cool. So with that, I could go through the rest of the settings here, but I'm not really going to. As soon as I open a new tab, this is my new home page. This is it. I can't really get rid of that icon in the side of the search bar, or at least I don't know how to at this point. But yeah, it's a nice clean start page. There's no feed of news articles. There's no background to get in the way. It's just a nice, clean start page. This is what we want. All right, cool. And yes, to some degree, you could go through the settings. You could get all of the settings the way that you want it to some extent. And this is a good thing to test because some settings will stick with it once it's been sysprepped. Some will not. Fine. Either way, it's a learning experience. It's been a learning experience for me. That's for sure. Okay, so from here, let me just get connected to my development machine that we've been on before, so that I can get the unattend file set, that I need for sysprep. Give me just a second here. All right, I've got it attached. Here's my temp. Here's the unattend file that we had before. All right, so I'm going to open up Notepad, and again, we can review the settings that we've got in this unattend file. By default, it would open up in Edge by the look of that, but I don't really want it in Edge. So I'd really like to look at it in Notepad. Thank you. All right. I honestly don't like the Notepad changes in Windows 11. That's okay. All right. So we've got our deployment here. We're going to be adding our bypass NRO registry key, which will remove the requirement for a Microsoft account. We've got the language settings again. We've got the computer name, copy profile true. That one very important, so that all the customizations we've got here will be in effect for any new accounts created. Protect your PC 3. Get rid of all of these screens during setup because we don't need any of it. We've got our super secret password here. We've got the initial account that we want to create. We can do auto login. We can do this. I don't actually have my kickoff script that I'll be using here, so I'm actually going to erase the first logon commands and the auto login because I don't need that for this demonstration. But I am going to do the rest of it pretty much exactly as I demonstrated last week, and we are going to be in mode Ubi. Cool. Let's save this as unattend.2.xml. There we go. All right. There's the new one that we just created. Awesome. All right. Now, how we do this? Okay. This is, as I recall, in Windows, System 32, and in sysprep. Should be anyway. Yep, there's sysprep.exe right there. Wonderful. So then if I run sysprep, remind me of that. There we go. Okay, so sysprep, I'm going to say generalize because I need it to remove the unique identifier, the unique security identifier that identifies this specific installation of Windows. Because when I load it fresh on every new machine, I need each new machine to create its own random security identifier rather than all of them using the same cloned one. So I'm going to use generalize. I'm going to tell it to go to ubi mode. I'm going to tell it to shut down is what I would usually use so that I have a moment to swap my swap my boot media so that I can image it correctly and I don't undo all of the hard work I've just gone through, and unattend the file name. Okay. So that's going to be sysprep / generalize / ubi. Hey. And I'm going to say it is the unattend2.xml file that I had there. And the last one that I was trying to remember what it was /shutdown. Except it's a slash, not a dot. Yay! There we go. Okay. Sysprep, generalize, ubi, shutdown, and use that particular unattend file. That's all that you do to finish that off. And I can even just close this. Sysprep is going to work. It generalizes it, and then it shuts it down. It doesn't take too long, but it definitely takes a couple of minutes so that it can go through the installation of Windows and make sure that everything is set back to the original state, and then it can come back up again. Sometimes sysprep may remove device drivers, but most of the time I find it doesn't. The distinction is in how the driver files were added to Windows. The correct way of doing this is to install the driver files, and if your driver install program is doing this correctly, it will insert the drivers into Windows Store and it'll rename it to something like OEM number.inf. Sysprep will leave all of those OEM drivers in place, and so you don't need to worry about those. In a corporate context, all of the drivers that I install from Dell or from Lenovo, they all do this correctly, and so they stay in there. But your mileage may differ depending on what drivers you add. So again, that's another thing that you may need to experiment with. It's been turned off. We now have an image in a clean state. If I was doing this for real, on real hardware, I would insert my boot drive. I would boot into Windows PE, and then I would use DISM to take a copy of the drive just as it is. But for this demo, we're just going to start it back up and say, this is now an image that we've dropped onto a new piece of hardware, and we want it to just unpack and show us what it's got. It'll open up the unattend file that is saved in there, and it'll go through the whole getting devices ready, getting ready. It'll do another reboot. It should not prompt us with any sort of high license Microsoft account, wireless. It should not give us any of that whatsoever. So it should be about as clean as you get it. But that's what we're going to find out, isn't it? And then next week I'm going to try and go through the whole process from start to finish. and it's not going to be live. I'm not going to be talking while things happen in the background, because if I go through the whole thing from start to finish, there's going to be a lot of stuff to go through. So it's going to be chopped up next week pretty badly, I think, but it will. I still want to go through this whole process for you live, start to finish. So some of this stuff in audit mode will kind of just flash by next week when we do it again. So at least this is here, and you've had a chance to look at the process in a little more detail, in close to real time anyway. Just a moment, it says. Come on then. There we go. So, oh no, we've launched Windows Setup. That's okay. We're not in audit mode. This is the actual out-of-box experience that Windows 11 wants you to have. But it's going to be taking our specific settings so that it doesn't really have to prompt us for anything. It doesn't have to prompt us for licenses. It doesn't have to prompt us for a Microsoft account. None of this stuff is applicable to our customized version of Windows 11. Great, your PC will restart before you continue. Excellent. If that's the only message I get, I'm happy with that. That's an out-of-box experience I can live with. Hi, we're just getting a few things set up. Go for it. All right. I can live with that. That is not too difficult. All righty then. Come on. Another thing I'll typically do while in audit mode is install all of my available Windows updates, just because then it's already fully updated when I actually boot Windows. And here it is. It's already got a user account created because it's the one that I specified. Haha, I can't remember the password I typed into the file. Yes, I can. I just mistyped it the first time. It's a super secret password. And it'll say, hi, we're just getting things started for you. We know. Nothing I can do to get rid of that, but this is where it is taking the default profile, which the administrator profile that we customized when we generalized it in sysprep, it moved that to the default profile. Cool. Now it's copying everything back from the default profile into the brand new profile for this brand new account. And that'll include all of our customizations for Edge, so that as a brand new user, we don't have to worry about all that crap. We get a nice, clean interface right from the very beginning. And that is something that I greatly prefer, because that's always been one of my biggest bugaboos, honestly, is the amount of news feeds. I don't need news feeds. If I open my browser, I want to browse to something specifically. I don't need to know the latest celebrity gossip. I don't need to know all this other stuff. So when I load it, cool. You can see right from the beginning, hey, we've got none of the search highlights. I didn't properly go through and get rid of Copilot the way I should have in audit mode, so that was incomplete, but hopefully something we'll look at next week in the from start to finish. But if I load Edge, there it is. It's an absolutely clean browser. There's no additional crap. And that is the power of audit mode. If I had other applications that I had installed in audit mode, they would still be installed here now. That's all there is to it, amazingly enough. And so I'm just going to, and yeah, none of the additional stuff that was necessary. These would normally not be here either, because my actual sealing script for sealing an image also removes the most recently opened files, so that I don't have anything left from technician mode, from audit mode in the final image. But again, that's something we can look at next week to some degree. I'm just going to shut that down. And that is basically it for this week. Stay tuned because next week's going to be the big one. But yeah, in the meantime, as always, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, let me know right down there in the comments section. And until next week, I am your next door net admin. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.